Hello, this is Lebin Cheng. I'm a CTO of CloudVector. Today, I will spend a few minutes to explain how our API Sharks free tool can help interactive application security testing, known as IAST. Let's start with a simple API service that exposes web APIs. And because we are going to test the API calls using the API parameters and observing what is returning, we cannot just simply know about its endpoint host. We have to get an API specification that describes what each call will look like before a typical test can be conducted. And conventionally, this API specification can be specified just like a text format in something like OpenAPI, otherwise sometimes known as Swagger, and there's other format like Redo, etc. But a lot of times, this API spec has to be manually generated by the developer. There are some SDKs, like the ones that are exposed by Apache or MuleSoft and others, to help developers while they're developing code, develop those API spec. And there are some tools like Optics that further help the developers scan their code and maybe help them build some templates. But eventually, it is the developer's job when they are coding the code to actually generate those API specifications. And this is easier for application that is developed from scratch, or developers still have access to the code. But still, it's a lot of work for the developer, and especially when the applications are being changed very frequently, then it's a lot of work for developers to make sure the API spec is up to date. That's why there are some attempts made to see if we can monitor and profile the API from the actual API calls and use it to sort of reverse engineer to derive the API spec, or even at least validate the API spec. And there are tools. One popular one comes to mind is Postman, that help you do that when it is typically is installed on the client host. And when the client makes calls, it observes those API calls and allow ones to generate profiles of those API calls, or even imitate those API calls, or replace certain values to conduct testing. And it's a very useful tool because it does not require ones to always have the API specification. And for some clients that is running on, say, a endpoint host, a mobile host, that is pretty hard to install in the host proxy. A proxy that is outside of the host can be used. And sometimes this proxy can even be run in the cloud. And there's a lot of cloud-based API testing proxies like that available as a service. But the idea is the same. The client makes calls through this proxy. The call can capture by the proxy and be used to profile the call, and used to generate API spec and generate further testing. But all of these client-based API profiling tools have one major limitation. They're extremely useful, but they have one major limitation, which is they can only capture calls from specific clients that go through the client-side proxy. And as we all know, a lot of times, API services that is exposed to other clients is sometimes very hard to predict what kind of client is making calls, or it's not enough to just profile so-called good clients or known clients, right? So that's why the idea of monitoring profiling API calls are sound, but what if we can do it on the service side? That's why a tool like API Sharks come into play. A tool like API Shark is just like a Wireshark for APIs. It can actually passively monitor the calls coming into the services. It does not need to modify any service calls. It does not need to be inline even. And it can, just like a Wireshark, sniffing on the network, sniffing for packets, we sniff for API calls. Just like you can imagine, as a analogies, you can think of it as a service-side postman. And what it does is it can then allow us to generate API specifications from the actual calls that we observe, which will be all the calls made against the service. And we can even validate specification if they are available using those actual calls. And based on the differences and based on the API call that we observe and based on the specification that we have generated, we can generate all the testing to enhance the visibility and also enhance the testing of the calls, because we can actually even extract API call parameter values and use it to generate further calls if there's a call that is missing, for example, from this API specification. And because we do it in a out-of-band manner, we are not impacting the service itself. The API shop can be even used to monitor both production and test. And whatever we observe in the production, we can actually feed back to enhance further testing. This is typical manner of an interactive application security testing, leveraging runtime, leveraging production data to enhance future testing. And we can do this continuously. That's why we call it an API shop based continuous interactive application security testing. To learn more, please feel free to contact us. And we have a whole set of tools that can allow you to deploy API shop and generate test cases. Or if you have your own testing tool, favorite testing tool, you don't have to change. All you need is we can enhance it by observing the actual API calls made against the service, and we can enhance your tool. So please give it a try, download API shop or contact us. We'd love to talk to you. Thank you.